We live under neoliberalism. The economic strains of past decades and the growing political unrest we see around us today is the fallout of neoliberalism's failure to deliver what it promised. And neoliberalism's failure shouldn't come as a surprise. We've tried it before under the name of laissez-faire economics, and it ended with the Great Depression before being followed by an age of political turbulence. Alright, so what exactly is neoliberalism? Neoliberalism is a faith in free market capitalism to distribute societal resources most efficiently and justly. But how does this translate into policy? So it's actually quite straightforward. All neoliberal policy is centered around preserving and expanding free market capitalism. That's literally it. But let's examine this a little further. First, we'll explore the role neoliberalism ascribes to the state. The state exists solely to maintain and expand free market capitalism. Beyond that, the state has no other purpose. The state shall not, under any circumstances, interfere with the markets. This means neoliberalism is incredibly pro-deregulation. Environmental regulations, labor regulations, pricing regulations, and so on all must go if we are to preserve market freedom. As well as deregulation, neoliberalism sees to it that all services once provided by the state are to be handed over to the free markets. Hence, neoliberalism seeks to expand free market capitalism via privatization. Additionally, neoliberalism is proudly pro-police and pro-military, as these are the arms of the state used to maintain and expand free market capitalism, dogs of the neoliberal state. Strict enforcement of property laws and patent laws are needed to secure the capital of the business class and ensure the only means of survival for the working class is working. Hence, in any neoliberal society, you'll find a heavy police state. So while the police are to be used for securing free markets domestically, the military ensures foreign markets remain free and foreign investments are protected. Have a pesky Middle Eastern country trying to nationalize its oil? Or a rowdy Latin American country who's forgotten their place and trying to turn to socialism? Do not hesitate to send in the troops. Keep those sexy markets open, baby. Any taxation beyond the necessary funding of free market preservation and expansion tools must be eliminated. As we've touched on before, social programs reward the lazy lifestyle of the poor, and taxing the rich for these programs de-incentivizes hard work. In other words, these social programs corrupt free market capitalism, such that hard work no longer matters, and you can be as lazy as you want. Instead of taxing the rich to fund these programs, why not let the business class keep this wealth? Maybe they'll invest in their business and provide more jobs. Or maybe they'll improve working conditions. Or maybe they'll raise wages. That's a joke, by the way, and tax cut is immediately pocketed. This is a very abstract reason neoliberals and the business class give for wanting to abolish social programs. But the more practical reason is a lot more cold and calculated. Without social programs, the employer's threat of firing becomes a much more potent disciplinary tool. As workers are wholly dependent on their employers for their survival, the threat of termination becomes, do as I say or die. As you can imagine, having the working class dependent on the business class for survival means a much more compliant and cheaper labor force. An acceptable form of despotism for the modern age. To protect free market capitalism, neoliberalism takes an incredibly aggressive approach in neutralizing any collective movement which challenges the authority of the business class. This means neoliberalism is staunchly anti-union, as unions infringe upon the business class's ability to run capital unchallenged. Thus, the neoliberal state takes every measure it can to dismantle and suppress collective action within the workplace. Strong anti-capitalist movements, both domestic and abroad, threaten the hegemony of the business class over the economy. As such, pose a serious threat to freedom itself. This justifies both covert and overt state subversion of these movements via the police, military, and intelligence agencies. Instead, neoliberalism would much rather see populist energy going towards fascist movements, which don't actually target the ruling business class, but rather some random minority group or vague, haunting specter. In the coming decades of this politically turbulent age, we'll see traditional powers of the business class much more willing to elevate fascists via the media, electoral politics, and corporate funding in an effort to channel energy away from socialism and towards a much more obedient movement. Taking a deeper look at neoliberalism, one will come to see that neoliberalism is founded on the idea that ultimately it's the business class most capable of meeting the needs of the people. Government gets in the way, collectives and the people are too dumb to know what's good for them, and if we want a better society, we better abdicate the economy entirely to the business class. Neoliberalism is an ideology for the business class, praising the business class, demanding submission to the business class.